Okay, our previous lesson was on solving two-step inequalities. This one's just going to take it one step farther and solve inequalities with distributive property or with variables on both sides. In our first example, you will see that on the left side of the equation, we need to start with doing the distributive property. So we're going to multiply 6 times each term in the binomial inside the parentheses. 6 times n is 6n. 6 times a negative 8 is negative 48. And all of that is greater than or equal to negative 18. Now we have our two-step inequality. So we're going to add 48 on both sides. Of course, a negative 48 and a positive 48 cancel out. So we are left with 6n on the left side. And on the right side, we have a negative 18 and a positive 48, which is 30. Now to finish up, we divide by 6 on both sides, and n is greater than or equal to 5. Since it's equal to 5, on 5 we make a filled in dot to indicate that 5 is a possible solution, and every number greater than that. So we draw our arrow to the right. In our next example, also here on the left side of the equation, we need to start with the distributive property. So we're going to multiply the negative 2 times each term. So negative 2 times a positive 3x is a negative 6x. And a negative 2 times a negative 4 is a positive 8. All of that is less than 11. Now on the left side of the equation, we will identify that there are some like terms that we need to combine first. We have a 10 and a positive 8. That gives us 18 minus 6x is less than 11. Now we have our two-step equation. So we continue by subtracting 18 on both sides. The 18s cancel out. You're left with negative 6x is less than negative 7. And when we divide by the negative 6, we remember that when we multiply or divide by a negative number, that we have to flip the sign. So x is greater than 7/6 or 1 1/6. We're going to have to approximate where to put this on our timeline, our number line. So we go down here. This looks like it would be 1. And we are at 1 1/6. Then we're going to go a little bit to the right, put a circle dot, and an arrow to the left. This is an example just like it. Again, we have the distributive property. So we're going to go 2 times 3n. That will give us 6n. Then we have 2 times 7, which is 14. All of that is greater than 5n. Here we have a variable on both sides of the equation. So we want to isolate the variable on one side. So I think I'm going to move the 6n to the other side by subtracting 6n on both sides. When we do that, we're left with 14 is greater than negative 1n. So now in order to get our n by itself, we have to divide both sides by a negative 1. Again, when dividing by a negative number, we have to flip the sign. Now, when we read it this way, it reads a lot better when the variable is on the left side. So if you are more comfortable with the variable being on the left side, notice that the greater than part of the symbol is towards the n. So we have to flip the sign in order that the greater part of the inequality sign is toward the n. So both of these read n is greater than negative 14. So then, of course, we go down here to our number line. We put a circle dot on negative 14, and it is greater than that. It always helps to have the variable on the left side of the equation. That way it shows you the arrow, direction that the arrow is going. In our last example, we have the distributive property on both sides of the equation. So we're going to multiply 5 times 2, which is 10, 5 times negative r, which is negative 5r. All of that is greater than or equal to, again, we have the distributive property. 3 times r is 3r. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Again, in this example, we have the variable on both sides of the equation. And since we're more comfortable with the variable being on the left side, let's move the 3 over to the other side to keep the variable on the left. When we do that, we're left with a negative 8r on the left side. And let's move the 10 to the other side by subtracting 10 on both sides. That will give us a negative 16. Then when we divide by our negative 8, negative number, so we flip the sign. So r is less than or equal to a positive 2. So when we are graphing that, we're going to make sure that we put in a colored in dot onto, and we draw the arrow to the left. That concludes the lesson on multi-step inequalities.